Hi, willkommen beim Lukas Filmgespräch zu So Damn Easy Going mit Regisseur Christoffer Sandler. Ihr könnt den Film beim kommenden Lukas Filmfestival vom 6. bis zum 13. Oktober 2022 in Kinos in Frankfurt, Wiesbaden und Offenbach sehen. Der Film ist Teil des Wettbewerbs 13+. Heute sitzen Helena und Selma neben mir, die den Film bereits gesehen haben und sich einige Fragen vorbereitet haben, um euch neugierig zu machen auf das, was euch erwartet. Schön, dass ihr beide da seid. Ich bin Simon vom Lukas-Team und dann können wir auch direkt starten.
Här ser jag att dina 2 senaste uttag inte har blivit inbetalda.
Men jag behöver ju medicinen.
Jag förstår det, men jag kan
Nej,
inte
jag förstår inte. Det blinkar liksom i hjärnan. Jag blir bara helt skitmaxad utan det. Alltså jag kan verkligen... Det är liksom... Det... Ja, förlåt. Men jag jävla sitter!
Yeah, hi and a warm welcome to you, Christopher. Welcome to Lukas. We're really great that we have you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So before I hand it over to Helena and Selma for the questions, could you describe So Damn Easy Going for the audience that have yet to see it?
It's a drama comedy about a young girl named Joanna who's desperately trying to get her ADHD medication, which her father haven't paid for a while, so she can't get it. And she's trying to balance her life in school and at home while at the same time falling in love for the first time with her classmate, Audrey. So it's kind of an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, thank you. Great that you're here. I'm just gonna jump in and ask you the first question. You mentioned that this was actually your first feature film.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you?
It was a bit daunting, coming from like doing web television productions to like, oh, this is going to be like a big thing now, like a movie with like a lot of people on set and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same thing. But most of all, it was very, very fun.
That's good. So when the movie was ready to watch, how was your reaction and maybe also how was your reaction and maybe also the reaction of the actors or other people who watched it?
My reaction was that I wanted to quit the business and now I have to do something totally different because this is the worst thing that ever was produced in the history of anything. That was my first reaction, seeing like the first cut of the film. But like that's how I feel every time I've been involved in something. Like when you see it for the first time, it's like the worst thing you've ever seen.
So we know there is a book to the film, and we wanted to ask you if all the characters are the same personalities in the book, or did you change anything for the movie?
It's actually quite different from the book. The basics, like the core story is pretty much the same, of course, but it's always difficult because like a book is so much longer. It's like 8 or 9 hours of content pretty much, and our film is 1.5 hours. So we had to strip some things down, and I had some discussions about this with the author Jenny Jägerfeld when she finally got to read the script that me and my colleague had written. She was pretty upset at first. But it's like me and Jenny are good friends now, so it's nothing like there's no bad blood or anything, but it was just a weird start for us to my producers like pretty much called me up and like, oh, can you have a meeting with the author because she's pretty upset about this. And me being my first feature and everything, I wasn't like too happy about, oh, let's go and meet her and like you know get my ass handed to me or whatever.
60 spänn är skitbilligt ju. Jag har massa här vi kan välja på. Beyoncé.
Vadå, att jag skulle ha en smal kuk då?
Det var kondomer jag sålde. Det var inte så att jag sålde knark eller något.
Nästan som att knark hade känns mindre konstigt dock.
So what's your favorite character? Or maybe do you relate to any character, or when you were young, something like that? What's your favorite character?
It's hard to pick a favorite. I would say like right off the top of my head, I would relate to Matteus the most, I think. not because of the drug thing, but that kind of feeling when you're like, you're in love with someone and you're almost being used. That kind of like when I was younger, I can relate to that. And the funny thing is, I can relate to. It was important for me to relate to all the characters, but the one I can relate to the least is Audrey, because she's like, because of her confidence and like her very mature way of seeing things. Maybe nowadays I can, but like being that age, that was like, I was more Matteus than anybody, I think.
So I think my favorite character is Audrey, actually. And I think it's because she's so different to me. Like, I don't think I'm very confident, but she is. So I kind of see her like, oh, I want to be like that. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, so maybe her.
We looked for people who could like have similar traits to what we were looking for in the characters. So Melina, who plays Audrey, is really, really like, when I first met her, I was like, she's the coolest person I've ever met, pretty much. But which is funny because she later, when we gotten to know each other, she revealed later that she was like very, very nervous and not at all that kind of cool person, but she definitely fooled me.
So Nikki plays Joanna, and does she really have ADHD?
She haven't done the tests to check it out. I don't think so. So no, not that I know of.
How did you achieve that it was authentically portrayed? Because it is always kind of difficult working with illnesses and portraying them in a way that is actually fitting.
First of all, I talked to a lot of people who had ADHD, and it's so different for everyone. Basically, it's like it enhances like a strong part of your personality, maybe, or something like that. So I just chose and picked some here and there from people I talked to. The blinking actually came from a guy I talked to who tried to describe it for me, like when he feels like the worst times with his ADHD, and he described it as like, imagine being at a train station and everyone is shouting your name at the same time. And I thought that was really interesting, but I didn't really want to have like the audio cues in that sense. So I thought like visuals are a good way to tell the story.
Är det här?
Ja. Jag har ADHD och jag har varit utan medicin nu i flera dagar och det har varit sämst.
Maybe could you tell us a bit more about how you were trying to portray this intimate atmosphere between the both of them?
I wanted them to hang out like quite a bit before we started shooting, and I also hung out with them to try to see what the vibe was. Like, if there's no chemistry at all, like there, I would be kind of scared to start shooting, I think. But like you can feel the chemistry like the first time they met, like when we filmed them together for the first time in casting. Also, like you could feel right away that this is going to work. Like you say, like a look can like speak louder than words sometimes, and it's like a lot of looks between them during the film. And I think that like really brings tension to the scene, and you can feel like both like desire and like self-pity and stuff, and like fear and everything, like just by them looking at each other. And so it was a lot of looks. But you also mentioned the music. It was like that's also a big deal, of course, and a big part of the story. And we worked a very long time with music to get it right. And it was like I wanted this kind of beautiful score, but also very like distorted, and like it should be kind of rusty and like with sharp edges and stuff. So it's not just like super sweet all the time. But even though it's sweet, it could have nuances of distortion and stuff because that was like the tone we were going for in general. Like it would like beautiful imperfection. That was like our like key words.
I think that's very nice.
Yeah.
So you, at the beginning, you mentioned a safe space, which you asked for when talking to the people with ADHD. So this question is actually, what was your goal for the movie, or maybe for its message? And was it maybe to create a safe space for young people or people in general who struggle with ADHD maybe, or living with a single parent, or living with a parent with a mental illness? So maybe you could talk about that a bit.
The goal was always to leave the film with like a warm feeling, pretty much. So it's like that you're gonna feel like some sort of like feeling of hope maybe, and just satisfied in that sense that like it was very important to have like an uplifting ending in this film, even though it's a kind of lighthearted film throughout. But the main message is pretty much like, especially if we're looking at Joanna's journey, it's just like, be proud of who you are, of course. Like that's like, it's not your fault that this stuff happened to you. It's just like circumstances, and people won't judge you for that, hopefully. And if they do, you don't need to hang around those people. But it's also a film about like relationships, like get yourself away from bad relationships. Like everybody in the film is struggling with some sort of bad relationships. Like Joanna has this bad relationship with herself, and Matthias is stuck in this bad relationship with Joanna, like this one-way relationship, and her father is in this like non-existing relationship with his wife, who's not even alive anymore, and he hasn't really come to accept that. So so that's pretty much it. And of course, like it would be wonderful to see if people like who identifies with Joanna can feel some sort of like lightheartedness and like feel lighter and satisfied after seeing this film. That would be amazing. So that's of course the goal also, but I don't know if I dare to say like, the goal is for people with a diagnosis or anything to feel like it's supposed to apply to, hopefully it applies to everyone in some sort of way.
Yeah, that's very beautiful.
Yes.
Jag vet bara att du inte skulle orka med mig.
Varför inte?
Vad skulle du säga då? Vad är jag för typ av person?
Yeah, we can pretty much say our goodbyes now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye, Christopher.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Euch an den Bildschirmen zu Hause und unterwegs, vielen Dank fürs Anschauen. Wir hoffen, ihr habt jetzt etwas Lust bekommen, euch So Damn Easy Going bei Lukas anzuschauen. Um Näheres zu erfahren, klickt auf unsere Webseite lukas-filmfestival.de und besucht unsere Social-Media-Kanäle. Zu guter Letzt noch der Dank an das Medienprojektzentrum Offener Kanal Rhein-Main, MOK, hier in Offenbach, für die Bereitstellung des Studios. Aber natürlich an Helena und Selma für die tollen Fragen und an das Team hinter der Kamera. Wir sehen uns dann beim Festival. Bis dahin!